The Olympus 75-300 f4.8-6.7 super zoom lens. Is it worth buying? Let's find out. Roll credits. Well, hi YouTube, Brian James at Micro Four Thirds Guy with you once again. Good to see you. Today we're going to be looking at this. This is the Olympus 75-300 f4.8-6.7 hyper zoom lens. It takes you a full frame equivalent from a 150 up to a 600, which is absolutely fantastic. Let's have a look at some of the specifications. Let's see how we get on with the lens. But before we do, don't forget, if you're not a subscriber to the channel, please hit the subscribe button below. Join our merry crew of subscribers on this 4 Thirds channel. Really good bunch of people. And if you do that, also hit the little bell and tick the all button to make sure that you get notifications every time I upload a new video. And if you do enjoy this video at any point, you can just go below, hit the thumbs up, give me a big like, because that helps YouTube to spread the word to more and more people so that we can actually get more people seeing these videos. And if you do like it, then consider also buying me a cup of coffee on the PayPal link below. It really does help the channel to survive. So the 75-300 f4.8-6.7. This is the Olympus equivalent of my 100-300 Lumix that I did in a review as a link above, and we'll see how we get on with them. It's not meant as a comparison review to that particularly. It's meant as a stand-up review in its own right. Now this one again is another lens I've been loaned by my good friend Jerry, so thank you very much, Jerry. It's a really fantastic little lens. Interesting because it is a direct competitor to the lens which I already own, but so different in so many ways. So we're going to be looking at this lens. So let's start off with some of the specifications on it. As I say, it's a 75-300, goes from f4.8 at the 75 end up to 6.3 when it's fully zoomed in at 300. Minimum aperture on this is f22, which is becoming the norm across Micro Four Thirds lenses. And on this, it's really used because it gives a fantastic ability to get quite a serious depth of field on a long lens, which usually is quite difficult because as we get compression on the longer end, we do tend to find that the depth of field narrows up with it as well. So the f22 gives us a fighting chance of getting quite a wide depth of field at the long focal lengths. Lengthwise, it's about 12 centimeters long, but it extends about half its length again when you zoom fully out. Now, the good thing is, holding the lens, you don't get a lens drop. It doesn't start falling in and out. If I zoom the lens fully in, lift it up, it doesn't move, which is good. You don't get the lens creep, even with a bit of shake on there. The good thing is, as well as it zooms in, it doesn't rotate in any way, so the lens barrel comes out straight, and also on focus it stays straight as well. Lens construction wise, it has 18 lenses in 13 groups, and they consist of 1 Super ED lens, 2 ED lenses and 3 HR lenses. Now the ED stands for extra low dispersion and the HR is a high refractive index. So what they're basically doing is trying to get rid of some of the optical problems that you get insofar as flare, insofar edging, chromatic aberration, and also some of the other issues that you can get, such as vignetting, pin cushioning. It all goes together in how the lens is constructed to try and get rid of as many of the distortions and irregularities that you get optically as you can. So again, a very well thought out lens. Now this is also part of one of what Olympus call the MSC range, which is movie and still compatible. Now what that means is it's got an almost totally silent and very fast autofocus system in here. Now there's 2 versions of this out. There's the Mark 1 and Mark 2, and the big difference between the 2 is that the Mark 2 has a zero coating. And what the zero coating stands for, zero on this, is Zuiko, which is the manufacturer, extra low for the E, reflective optics. Dead easy. So it's a Zuiko extra low reflective optics. Fantastic, I love acronyms. Now filter wise, this has got a fairly standard 58mm filter thread on here, so it's nice easy to get filters. As you can see, Jerry always keeps a UV filter on, so it's got the UV filter on here. And also on the lens itself, it weighs 426 grams. Now remember, if this was a full frame equivalent, this would be a 150 to 600mm lens, and they're huge and heavy. 426 grams for this is next to nothing. Now you'll see on some of the shots that I did on this one that I had it mounted onto a fairly small tripod, and it always worries me when you put a big lens onto a small tripod, especially when it doesn't have a lens mount ring of its own. Yet this was not in the least bit unstable. It was really stable on there, didn't try falling forward, and as you can see, I'm able to hold it in one hand quite easily. Zooming in and out, it's a fairly wide grip on this. It's a hard plastic, hard rubbery plastic, rather than the sort of soft that you get on the Lumix lenses. And it's very typical of this range of Olympus lenses. I've got the 45 to 150 equivalent in this, again the MSC lens, and it's a very similar construction. They look neat, they look tidy. It's a well made, well constructed lens, all plastic, but very well done, and never given me any problems in the past. I can't see this one giving any problems either. The only concern I have, and it's a very slight concern, the focus ring. If you do manual focus, the focus ring is just so light, it feels as though there's nothing attached to it. It is a focus by wire system, but there's just no feedback on it. Now, I say this regularly, but I keep on having to say it on this. Olympus, please give us a lens hood. They only cost you pennies to make, and it makes such a difference to us. This lens is particularly prone to a bit of lens flare, and a lens hood is really essential on it. Now, I've got Jerry's lens hood in there, and I've been using it when I've been taking the photographs. I've left it off for this video, but it really is an essential on this. So come on, Olympus, they cost you pennies to make, and they give so much more satisfaction to us. Now, as usual on Olympus lenses, this does not have image stabilization built in, so you're totally reliant on what's in the camera. But if you're using either the more modern Lumix or the Olympus cameras, you're going to find that you don't really have problems on this. And when I was shooting and doing the test, which keep watching because I'll give you a selection of photographs from what I was doing at Talk and Tarn last night. When I've been shooting this, I found that it was absolutely joy. It was easy to use. Because of its lightweight, it was easy to hold, and I had no problem, even at 300mm end, using it to zoom in and hold steady. Now, best resolution on this I found to be at the fully zoomed out, the 75mm end, at about f8, which is what I'd expect. It's not the fastest of lenses, as I say, it's an f4.8 to 6.7, and that really can cause you a few problems insofar as if you are shooting any low light, it's going to be very difficult. Also remember, if you are shooting in anything low light, I would actually suggest pushing the ISO higher rather than try to do anything particularly fancy with it. Remember, if you're shooting moving objects, even though you've got image stabilization, you're still going to get blur from those objects at low shutter speeds, unless you are following through, in which case your background is going to go blurry. So in reality, I'd be quite happy to push the ISO higher to be able to get the shot. But it's not a low light monster, this one. It's not meant to be, and for what it does in normal shooting conditions, it's quite capable. But remember, this is something of a specialist lens as well. You're so far away from your normal 14 to 42 sort of scale of kit lens. You know, you're starting way beyond where that one finishes. So you are going into the more esoteric and specialist shooting areas anyway. Now, I mentioned sharpness there. There is a simple sort of thing on this, which I found that the higher focal length you go to, the less sharp it is. It is acceptably sharp at the 300. I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's not. It's nothing to write home about. But it does get progressively worse from the 75 all the way up to the 300. Contrast-wise, I find that the lens is fantastic. Colour-wise, colour rendition-wise, again fantastic. You're not going to have any problems on that. As I say, your biggest problem is just getting enough light onto it. And I found that it was a very steady lens when I was shooting on video as well, which was very rewarding to find out. So let's look at some of the pros and cons on this lens. Well, pros wise, it's inexpensive, it's lightweight, it's for its price point, it gives a really reasonably good quality right across the range. It's well constructed, of a good quality plastic, and of course it has the Olympus name on it. Cons wise, well, it doesn't have image stabilization. It does suffer somewhat from lens flare, so that's something to be ready for. And of course it doesn't come with a lens hood. You've got to buy that separate, and it is needed. Now, I have compared this to the Lumix a couple of times, so let's have a little look as to what I feel between the two. Quality wise of the optics, I don't think there's anything to call between them. They're both good. They've both got some drawbacks. They're both really good. One thing I didn't notice on this was any appreciable vignetting at the corners, which you do tend to get on the longer lenses quite often. Overall, I found that I prefer the feel of the Lumix. It is a little bit chunkier in the hand, but not a great deal in it. I prefer the rubberized feel on it, especially if I'm out in the field somewhere. I find that I've got a little bit more grip on it, and I did prefer the manual focus ring on the Lumix. But again, these are small nitpicking differences on it. The good thing with the Lumix is it's slightly cheaper, and also it does come with image stabilization. So if you're using it on the more modern Lumix cameras, it will link in with the OIS on the camera and give you an improved image stabilization on that. On Olympus, obviously you just got the in-body stabilization. But again, you can use these handheld, either of these lenses handheld perfectly well. One thing I really do like about the Olympus though, is that extra 25mm of focal length at the bottom end between 75 and 100. That takes you from almost shooting into the normal range of everyday photography and gets you into what I consider more specialist end of the high focal length lenses. It gives that little bit of leeway and possibly will just give you a few extra shots out of that you wouldn't have got otherwise. But in conclusion, there's one thing which is above all for either the Lumix or this, and you know, this really is pointing for me. We have a lens here which costs £450 brand new, just over £300 used. It weighs only 426 grams. It is easy to hold, easy to handle, wonderful to put in the camera bag. If I was shooting on another format, I would have a considerably larger, heavier, more ungainly lens, and that would probably be me tempted to leave it at home. And if it's at home, I can't be taking the shots. This is the sort of thing I'm quite happy to put in my camera bag, take along as an extra lens for the occasions I use it, and it's there, and I'll get those shots which I wouldn't have otherwise. And that is worth its weight in gold. So would I buy this lens? If I didn't have the Lumix, yes I would. If I was an Olympus user and had the choice between the two, I'd probably go for the Olympus. If I'm using primarily Olympus bodies, I think it's a better match. If I was a primarily Lumix user, I would be buying the Lumix lens. They are that close and they are that good. I love the two of them. They are perfect to have in your camera bag, well worth it, and it's not a small amount of money, £400, £450, but it is a worthwhile amount of money, and it's going to give you shots that you're not going to get otherwise. And to be perfectly honest, I've seen a few people who tried to do things like this by using the digital zoom in the camera, and the results just are not the same. The quality goes. So if you're wanting quality results from a long lens which is usable and good handling, either the Lumix or the Olympus, but in this case, if you're an Olympus user, go for the Olympus. It's just a no-brainer. So once again, my name is Brian James, I'm Micro Four Thirds Guy. If you've enjoyed this video and you're not a subscriber, hit the subscribe button and the little bell for notifications, and tick the all box to make sure you get those notifications through. And if you haven't done so already, please give me a big thumbs up below and a like, because that really does help YouTube to spread my videos to more and more people to see. And as I say, if you've enjoyed this and you want to help support the channel, there's a PayPal link below where you can buy me a cup of coffee. But the most important thing, and I say this every time, keep taking your camera out, keep taking photographs, and keep enjoying your photography. Till the next time, Brian James, bye bye.